The stars blurred past the window as Velthar checked his instruments one more time. Everything looked normal. His ship moved quietly through the darkness of space, getting closer to the small blue planet below. This was supposed to be an easy mission. He would scan the planet, count the weapons, and leave before anyone noticed. Then his people would come back later with warships and take over. That was how the Quilnari Empire worked. That was how they had conquered 17 other worlds. Velthar did not feel excited about this mission. He did not feel anything at all. The Quilnari did not waste time on feelings. They were trained from birth to be cold, efficient, and strong. Emotions made you weak. Attachment made you vulnerable. He had learned these lessons well during his 40 cycles of life. The alarm began beeping. Velthar looked at the screen and felt confused. Something was wrong with the navigation system. The numbers did not make sense. Before he could react, a wave of energy hit his ship like an invisible hammer. Every light on the control panel started flashing red. Smoke filled the cabin. The ship began spinning wildly. Velthar grabbed the controls with all 4 of his arms, trying desperately to steady the craft. Nothing worked. The ship would not respond. Through the window, he watched the blue planet grow larger and larger. He was falling. There was nothing he could do to stop it. The impact threw him forward against his restraints. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Fire erupted from the engine compartment. The ship tore through trees and dirt before finally sliding to a stop in a clearing. For a moment, everything was silent except for the crackling of flames and the hiss of leaking fuel. Pain shot through Velthar's leg when he tried to move. He looked down and saw purple blood soaking through his armor. Several of his ribs felt broken. His communication device was completely destroyed, crushed under a fallen panel. The emergency beacon was somewhere in the wreckage, but he could not see it. He dragged himself through the broken cockpit window, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Every movement hurt. His training told him to find shelter and hide until he could assess the situation. The natives would surely come to investigate the crash. They would capture him or kill him. He needed to find his weapon and prepare to defend himself. Velthar spotted his plasma rifle lying near a piece of twisted metal. He crawled toward it, his injured leg useless. Just as his hand closed around the weapon, he heard a sound. An engine. A vehicle was approaching. He turned, raising the rifle as high as his weakened arms could manage. A primitive ground vehicle stopped about 50 meters away. The engine shut off. A door opened. Velthar's vision was getting blurry from blood loss, but he could see a figure climbing out of the vehicle. The human was older, with gray in his hair and weathered skin. He wore simple clothes covered in dirt. He must have been working in the fields when he saw the crash. The human should have been afraid. He should have run away or called for soldiers. Instead, he walked slowly toward Velthar with his hands raised high in the air. Velthar tried to keep the weapon steady, but his arms were shaking. The human stopped walking and said something in his language. The words meant nothing to Velthar, but the tone was soft, calm, almost gentle. The human reached slowly into his vehicle and pulled out a white box with a red symbol on it. The Quilnari reconnaissance officer had studied many species during his training. He knew how to identify weapons and threats. This box was not a weapon. It was some kind of medical supply container. The human was offering to help him. This made no sense. Velthar's people would never help an injured enemy. They would either capture the enemy for interrogation or eliminate the threat immediately. Mercy was not part of the Quilnari way. It was weakness. It was foolish. Yet this human, this primitive being from a planet that did not even have faster-than-light travel, was walking toward him with medical supplies. Velthar's arms finally gave out. The rifle fell to the ground. He tried to reach for it, but the pain was too much. He expected the human to attack now that he was defenseless. Instead, the human knelt beside him and opened the white box. He pulled out bandages, bottles of liquid, and other medical items. The human began cleaning the wound on Velthar's leg. His hands were surprisingly gentle. He kept talking in that same soft voice, though Velthar could not understand the words. It sounded like the human was trying to comfort him, to tell him that everything would be okay. Velthar watched in amazement as the human wrapped his leg in clean bandages. The bleeding slowed. The human checked his other injuries, carefully avoiding the sharp spines along Velthar's back. When the human's hand accidentally brushed against one of the spines and got cut, he simply wrapped his own finger and continued working. After several minutes, the human helped Velthar to his feet. Well, to his 3 good feet, since one leg could not bear weight. The human was much smaller and weaker than Velthar, but he managed to support the larger alien's weight. Together they limped toward the vehicle. The human opened the back door and helped Velthar climb inside. The vehicle was old and worn, with tools and farming equipment scattered around. It smelled of earth and plants. The human drove carefully, avoiding bumps in the rough road. Every few seconds he glanced in the mirror to check on his injured passenger. Velthar's mind raced with questions. Why was this human helping him? What did he want in return? Was this a trap? But if it was a trap, it was a strange one. The human had not tried to restrain him. He had not called for backup. He had simply provided medical care and was now taking him somewhere. They drove past fields of crops and small houses. Velthar saw other humans working in the fields, but the driver did not stop or signal to them. He just kept driving until they reached a modest house surrounded by trees. The human parked the vehicle and came around to help Velthar out. As they walked toward the house, Velthar realized something that shook him to his core. For the first time in his life, he was completely at the mercy of another species. And for some inexplicable reason, he felt that he might actually be safe. The door opened and a woman appeared. Her eyes went wide when she saw Velthar, but she did not scream. She did not run. Instead, she quickly stepped aside to let them enter. The human man said something to her in a rushed voice, and she nodded, disappearing into another room. Velthar found himself in a simple home. The furniture was old but clean. Pictures hung on the walls showing the human couple at different ages, along with a younger female. Plants sat on windowsills. The air smelled of cooking food and something sweet he could not identify. The man helped him sit on a soft chair. Velthar's reptilian skin felt strange against the fabric. His forearms did not fit naturally on the armrest designed for 2-armed beings. His tail curled awkwardly on the floor. He must have looked like a monster in this peaceful home. Yet neither of the humans treated him that way. The woman returned with a younger female who carried a bag. This must be their daughter. She looked to be in her mid-20s with kind eyes and confident movements. She knelt in front of Velthar and began examining his injuries with professional care. She spoke to her father and he explained something while gesturing at the crash site. The daughter carefully unwrapped the bandages her father had applied. She studied the wound with intense focus, then pulled various instruments from her bag. Velthar recognized some of them as medical tools, though they were primitive compared to Quilnari technology. She cleaned the wound more thoroughly than her father had been able to do in the field. Her hands were steady and sure. While she worked, the older woman brought a bowl of steaming liquid. She offered it to Velthar with a gentle smile. He stared at the bowl, unsure what to do. Was this food, medicine? Some kind of poison? The woman took a small sip from another bowl to show him it was safe, then offered his bowl again. Velthar took the bowl carefully. His hands were still shaking slightly. He brought it to his mouth and tasted the liquid. It was warm and salty with bits of vegetables floating in it. His biology was similar enough to humans that he could eat their food, though the taste was strange. But it was warm and it made his stomach feel better. The daughter finished bandaging his leg with clean materials. She said something to him in a soft voice, then pulled out a small rectangular device. She touched the screen several times, then showed it to him. On the screen were images and words. She pointed at a picture of a humanoid figure and said a word. Then she pointed at Velthar. He understood. She was trying to communicate. The device was some kind of translation tool. Velthar pointed at himself and said his name slowly. The daughter repeated it, stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds. Then she pointed at herself and said, Bora. She pointed at her father and said Daejung, then at her mother and said, Yirim. For the next hour, they worked on basic communication. Bora showed him pictures on the device and taught him Korean words. House, water, food, pain, safe. That last word she emphasized, pointing around the room and then at him. Safe. He was safe here. but Velthar did not understand why they were doing this. In his world, weakness meant death. Showing vulnerability to others was the fastest way to be eliminated. Yet these humans had taken an injured alien warrior into their home. They had fed him. They were teaching him their language. They asked for nothing in return. As the sun began to set, Daejung helped Velthar move to a small room at the back of the house. There was a sleeping mat on the floor, thicker and softer than anything in Velthar's sleeping pod on his ship. Bora brought him more food and water. She checked his bandages one more time, then said something that the translation device interpreted as, "Rest now, you need healing." Velthar lay on the mat, staring at the ceiling. His body ached, but the pain was manageable now. He could hear the family talking in the other room. Their voices were low and serious. They were probably discussing what to do with him. Would they contact their authorities? Would they turn him over to their military? The next morning, Velthar woke to the smell of cooking food. He carefully stood up, testing his injured leg. It hurt, but he could put some weight on it. He limped to the doorway and found the entire family sitting around a low table eating breakfast. Hiram saw him and immediately stood up. She guided him to sit at the table and placed a bowl of food in front of him. It was rice with vegetables and some kind of fermented side dishes. The family did not stare at him while they ate. They talked among themselves, sometimes glancing at him with smiles, but mostly just treating him like he belonged there. Over the next few days, more humans came to the house. Each time, Velthar prepared himself for capture. Each time, he was surprised. An elderly male brought books with pictures of Earth and Korea. A younger female brought different foods to see what he could eat safely. A teenage male brought electronic parts, fascinated by Velthar's descriptions of his ship's technology. The village apparently knew about him now, but no soldiers came. No scientists with testing equipment. Just curious, friendly people who brought gifts and tried to talk with him through the translation device. Velthar began to understand some Korean words without the device. Annyeonghaseyo meant hello. Gamsahamnida meant thank you. Gwenchana meant it is okay. He practiced saying these words, and the humans smiled with encouragement when he got them right. Bora spent hours each day helping him recover. She was a doctor for animals, she explained, but bodies worked similarly across species. She changed his bandages, gave him medicine for pain, and taught him exercises to help his leg heal properly. She asked about his family through the translation device. Velthar thought about his clutchmate, the only being he had ever felt any connection to in his entire life. In Quilnari society, clutchmates were the closest thing to family, but even that bond was weak compared to what he saw in this human family. Bora seemed sad when he explained how cold and distant his people were with each other. One evening, Velthar overheard Daejung and Hiram talking. Even with his limited Korean, he understood they were discussing whether to contact the government. Daejung said something about protecting Velthar, protecting him from his own rescue. Velthar realized with stunning clarity that these humans saw him not as a threat or a resource or a curiosity. They saw him as someone who needed help. And in their world, that was apparently enough reason to risk everything. 2 weeks passed. Velthar's leg healed enough that he could walk with only a slight limp. His other injuries faded to dull aches, but the confusion in his mind only grew stronger. Every morning, Daejung woke early to work in his fields. Now Velthar joined him. With his superior strength, he could carry tools and supplies that would take Daejung multiple trips. He could lift heavy equipment that the older man struggled with. The work felt good. It had purpose, but not the cold military purpose he was used to. This was about growing food, helping the family, being useful. Hiram taught him to help in the kitchen. She showed him how to cut vegetables, how to prepare rice, how to mix the spices for kimchi. She laughed when he accidentally made the mixture too spicy and his eyes watered. She did not mock him. She just showed him again with patience. When he finally got it right, she clapped her hands and smiled like he had accomplished something important. Bora returned to Seoul for her work, but came back every weekend. She brought him books with pictures about Earth. She showed him videos on her device of different countries, different cultures, different ways humans lived. Velthar watched in amazement. His people had one way of living, one culture, one purpose. But humans had thousands of different languages, foods, traditions, and beliefs. And somehow they existed together. The other villagers stopped treating him like a stranger. Tai Yang, the retired teacher, visited almost daily. He would sit with Velthar for hours, teaching him Korean and telling him stories about Korean history. He spoke about wars and peace, about suffering and recovery, about how his country had been broken and rebuilt itself through determination and community. Young Mi from the cafe brought food every few days. She experimented constantly, trying to find dishes that Velthar's alien biology could enjoy. She discovered he liked spicy flavors and slightly bitter vegetables. She started making special versions of traditional dishes just for him. When he thanked her, she waved her hand dismissively and said helping others was just what neighbors did. Then Jae-won arrived. He was Dae-jung's younger brother, a former military officer with sharp eyes and a serious face. He came to the house one afternoon without warning. The moment he saw Velthar, his body tensed. He looked at the alien, then at his brother, then back at the alien. The conversation that followed was intense. Velthar understood enough Korean now to grasp the main points. Jae-won was angry that Dae-jung had not reported the crash. He talked about national security, about danger, about unknown threats. Dae-jung remained calm, explaining that Velthar was injured and needed help first. Jae-won spent the next 3 days watching Velthar carefully. He asked questions through the translation device. Where was he from? Why was he here? What were his intentions? Velthar answered honestly. He had been sent to scout Earth for invasion. His ship had crashed. He had expected to die, but Dae-jung had saved him. The honesty seemed to surprise Jae-won. He asked why Velthar would admit to being a scout for an invasion. Velthar replied that lying seemed pointless now. He had seen enough of humans to know they deserved the truth. Everything changed when Jae-won's mother, Grandmother Kyung-ja, came to visit. She was small and elderly, with silver hair and a bent back. She walked with a cane and moved slowly. When she saw Velthar, she did not hesitate. She walked right up to him and patted his lower arm with her wrinkled hand. She said something in Korean that made everyone laugh. Dae-jung translated. His mother had said that Velthar looked too skinny and needed to eat more. She had brought special food she made herself. For the next hour, Grandmother Kyung-ja treated Velthar exactly like she treated her human grandchildren. She fed him, fussed over his bandages, and taught him an old folk song. Velthar did not understand the words, but he hummed along anyway. Jae-won watched his elderly mother treating the alien like family, and something in his expression softened. Later, he told Velthar that if his mother trusted him, that was enough. But he asked Velthar to share everything he knew about his people and their plans for Earth. Velthar agreed. He went to his crashed ship with Jae-won and salvaged what he could from the damaged database. Back at the house, he showed them everything. Star maps, ship designs, military strategies, the timeline for invasion. His people planned to arrive in less than 2 years. The family reacted with fear, but not toward Velthar. Instead, they asked how they could help. How could they protect Earth? How could they prepare? And how could they keep Velthar safe from his own people? Min-soo, the teenage boy who loved electronics, found Velthar's emergency beacon in the wreckage. He repaired it and brought it to the house. He explained excitedly that it was working again. Velthar stared at the device. With one push of a button, he could call for rescue. He could return home. He could complete his mission. But when he looked around the room at the faces watching him, he realized something shocking. He did not want to go home. Home was cold. Home was empty. Home had no Dae-jung patiently teaching him to farm, no Hi-Rim laughing at his cooking mistakes, no Bora spending her weekends helping him heal, no Taeyang sharing stories, no Young Mai bringing food, no Grandmother Kyung-ja treating him like he mattered. The village held a harvest festival that weekend. Velthar assumed he would stay hidden in the house, but Dae-jung insisted he come. They walked together to the village square where tables were set up with food and decorations hung from trees. Music played from speakers. People danced and laughed. Children ran up to Velthar without fear. They had seen him around the village enough that he was no longer strange to them. They gave him flowers and asked him to play their games. He did not understand the rules, but he tried anyway. When he accidentally won a game, the children cheered for him. Velthar watched the humans celebrate their harvest. They thanked the earth for providing food. They honored their ancestors who had worked the same fields. They shared everything they had with everyone in the village, including him. An outsider, an alien, a scout for an empire that wanted to conquer them. That night, Velthar experienced something his biology should not allow. Tears formed in his eyes. They were not tears of sadness exactly, but something deeper. His people had conquered 17 worlds. They had technology and weapons beyond human imagination. They thought themselves superior to every other species. But these humans had something the Quilnari had lost long ago, if they ever had it at all. They had kindness. They had compassion. They helped each other for no reason except that it was right. And somehow, impossibly, they had extended that same kindness to him. The repaired emergency beacon sat on the table in front of Velthar. Minsu had done excellent work fixing it. One push of the activation button, and a rescue ship would arrive within days. Velthar stared at the device for a long time. His training was clear. An officer of the Quilnari Empire always completed the mission. He should activate the beacon, return home, and report everything he had learned about Earth. The invasion would proceed as planned. His people would conquer this world, just like they had conquered 17 others. But his training had not prepared him for Daejung carrying him to safety when he should have been left to die. It had not prepared him for Hyrim's patient kindness or Bora's gentle care. It had not prepared him for a village that welcomed a monster into their community and treated him like family. Velthar picked up the beacon and turned it over in his hands. The weight felt heavier than it should. Bora entered the room carrying 2 cups of tea. She sat down across from him and placed 1 cup in his reach. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, something that would have been impossible in Quilnari culture where silence meant suspicion. "You are thinking about going home," Bora said quietly. It was not a question. Velthar nodded. His Korean had improved enough for simple conversations now. "I am thinking about many things." "Do you want to go home?" That was the question that tormented him. Want? The Quilnari did not make decisions based on wants. They followed orders. They served the Empire. Personal desires were irrelevant. But Bora had asked what he wanted, as if his personal feelings mattered more than his duty. "I do not know," Velthar admitted. "My people expect me to return. I have information they need. I have a duty." Bora sipped her tea slowly. "My father told me something when I was trying to decide whether to become a veterinarian. He said that duty is important, but we also have a duty to ourselves, to be the person we want to be, not just the person others expect." "Your people value choice," Velthar said. "My people value order. And which do you value?" Velthar did not answer. He could not answer. 3 months ago, he would have said order without hesitation. Now he was not sure. The next morning brought urgent news. Jae-Wan arrived early with his military contacts. A Quilnari probe had been detected passing through the solar system. It was scanning for debris, looking for lost ships. It would find Velthar's crash site soon. When it reported back to the Empire, investigators would come. "How long do we have?" Daejung asked. "Maybe 5 days," Jae-Wan said. "Maybe less." Everyone looked at Velthar. The decision could not wait anymore. Either he activated the beacon and went home, or he helped Earth prepare for what was coming. There was no middle path. Velthar went to the field where his ship had crashed. The wreckage was still there, partially buried now. He stood at the spot where Daejung had first approached him with medical supplies instead of weapons. That moment had changed everything. He heard footsteps behind him. Bora had followed. She stood beside him, looking at the destroyed ship. "I have been thinking about your question," Velthar said, "about what I want. And, in my culture, we are taught that individuals do not matter. Only the Empire matters. Only the mission matters. But you humans believe something different. You believe every individual has value. Every life matters." "Yes," Bora said simply. "If that is true, then the humans on this planet matter. All of them. Not just the ones I have met, but all of them. Children who have not been born yet. Families who deserve to live in peace." Velthar turned to face her. "My people will not show your world mercy. They will conquer and subjugate. Many will die. I know. Then you understand why I cannot go home. If I return, I become part of that. I help them destroy everything I have learned to value here." Bora smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. You do not have to go home, Velthar. You already are home. Those words broke something inside him. Or maybe they fixed something that had always been broken. Velthar felt a sensation he had never experienced before. It was like the coldness he had carried his entire life was finally melting away. They walked back to the house together. The whole family was waiting. Velthar placed the emergency beacon on the table. I will not activate this, he said in careful Korean. I will not return to my people. Instead, I will help you prepare for what is coming. I will tell you everything I know about Quilnari tactics, technology, and weaknesses. Daejung stood and placed a hand on Velthar's shoulder. You understand what this means? Your people will consider you a traitor. Yes. You can never go back. I do not want to go back. You saved my life when you should have let me die. You showed me kindness when I deserved none. You gave me something my people abandoned long ago. You gave me a reason to be more than a soldier. Yirim wiped tears from her eyes. Grandmother Kyungja nodded with satisfaction as if this was exactly what she expected. Jaewon looked serious but approving. For the next 3 days, Velthar worked without rest. He drew detailed diagrams of Quilnari ships. He explained their weapons systems and their weaknesses. He described military tactics and command structures. He shared passwords and frequencies. Everything he knew, he gave to Jaewon to pass to the Korean government. On the 3rd day, Velthar took the emergency beacon to the crash site. He placed it in the center of the wreckage. Then he used his plasma rifle to destroy it completely. The device exploded in a flash of light and heat, melting into useless slag. His ship's remaining computer systems were next. He systematically destroyed every component that could be tracked or traced by his people. When he was finished, there was nothing left that could lead the Quilnari to him or to the humans who had helped him. Velthar stood in the field as the sun set. He was stranded on an alien world, cut off from his people forever. By Quilnari law, he was a traitor. They would hunt him if they ever discovered he was alive. He had thrown away everything he had been trained to value. And yet, as he walked back toward the warm lights of Daejung's house where his adopted family waited with dinner and conversation and acceptance, Velthar felt something extraordinary. For the first time in his entire life, he felt free. He felt like he finally knew what it meant to choose his own path. And he had chosen to stand with humanity, not against it. Whatever came next, he would face it with the family who had taught him that strength was not about conquest or domination. True strength was about having the courage to show kindness even to your enemies. Jaewon's hands shook slightly as he delivered the report to his former commander. The folder contained everything Velthar had shared. Technical specifications, tactical weaknesses, invasion timelines, star charts. It was the most important intelligence any human had ever possessed. The Korean government reacted with expected skepticism at first. An alien defector with information about an impending invasion sounded like science fiction, but Velthar had predicted astronomical events that their scientists could verify. He had described technologies that matched the wreckage they examined. He knew things no human could possibly know. Within a week, officials arrived at the village. They were led by Ambassador Sung-ho, a senior diplomat known for his wisdom and calm judgment. He interviewed Velthar for hours, asking detailed questions about Quilnari culture, military capabilities, and intentions. Velthar answered everything honestly. He expected to be taken away, locked up, studied like a specimen. Instead, Sung-ho thanked him for his courage and asked what he needed to be comfortable. When Velthar said he wished to stay with Daejung's family, Sung-ho simply nodded and made arrangements. The information Velthar provided changed the world. Earth's governments, faced with an existential threat, began working together in ways they never had before. Old conflicts seemed less important when extinction was the alternative. Scientists from every nation collaborated on defense systems. Military strategists developed coordinated response plans. Velthar became an advisor, but he did not move to a military base or research facility. He stayed in the village, connected to military headquarters through secure video calls. Every morning he worked in Daejung's fields. Every afternoon he consulted with Earth's defenders. Every evening he had dinner with his family because that was what they were now. His family. Daejung and Herim officially registered him in their family records, an adoption that required special new laws to accommodate. Bora called him her brother. Grandmother Kyungja scolded him when he worked too hard, just like she scolded her other grandchildren. The village became famous. News organizations wanted to interview the alien who had defected to help humanity. Scientists wanted to study his biology. Military leaders wanted him relocated for security. But Shung-ho protected Velthar's wishes to live simply. The village became a restricted area, protected but not publicized. Velthar taught Earth's engineers how to build shields that could deflect Quilnari plasma weapons. He showed them the frequency vulnerabilities in Quilnari communication systems. He explained the rigid hierarchy of Quilnari command structures and how it could be exploited. Most importantly, he taught them about Quilnari psychology. They believe they are superior to all other species, Velthar explained during one strategy session. This makes them overconfident. They will expect you to be afraid and disorganized. They will not expect you to work together. They will definitely not expect you to be prepared. Youngmi expanded her cafe into a larger restaurant. It became a gathering place for the scientists and military personnel stationed in the area. She hired more staff and created a special section on the menu for foods that worked with Quilnari biology. Other aliens had begun defecting after hearing about Velthar's story, and they all needed to eat. Taeyang started teaching alien newcomers about human culture and Korean language. His small tutoring sessions grew into formal classes. He loved the work, he said, because it reminded him why education mattered. It built bridges between different beings. Minsu went to university to study xenotechnology, the new field that combined human engineering with alien principles. He visited Velthar often, asking excited questions about Quilnari science. Velthar enjoyed these conversations. The young human's enthusiasm reminded him that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. The invasion came exactly when Velthar had predicted, 2 years after his crash. The Quilnari fleet arrived expecting easy conquest. Instead, they found Earth's defense network fully operational. Satellites with shield technology protected major cities. Coordinated military forces from every nation worked as one unit. Communication jammers disrupted Quilnari command chains. The battle lasted 3 days. It was fierce and terrible. Ships burned in orbit. Weapons lit up the night sky. People died, but humanity held firm. And they had one advantage the Quilnari had never encountered before. They had Velthar. He predicted every major tactical move before it happened. He knew how the Quilnari commanders would respond to each situation. He understood their strategies because he had been trained in them. But more than that, he understood their weakness. The Quilnari could not imagine that anyone would fight for anything except domination. They did not understand that humans were fighting for their families, their homes, their right to exist freely. On the 3rd day, the Quilnari flagship demanded communication. Velthar stood in the command center with Shung-ho and other Earth leaders. The Quilnari commander appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted with anger and confusion. "How did you prepare for us?" the commander demanded. This planet should have been defenseless. Velthar stepped forward so the commander could see him. The commander's expression changed to shock, then rage. "Traitor," the commander hissed. "You betray the Empire for these primitive beings?" "I did not betray the Empire," Velthar said calmly in his native language. "The Empire betrayed itself long ago when it forgot that strength without compassion is just cruelty. These humans taught me something our people lost. They taught me kindness. Kindness is weakness. No, I thought that too once. Then my ship crashed and I expected to die. But a farmer found me and bandaged my wounds instead of leaving me to suffer. His family took me into their home when they should have been afraid. A village welcomed me when they could have hated me. They showed me that the strongest beings are not the ones who conquer others, but the ones who choose mercy." Velthar gestured to the humans around him. These people knew I was sent to scout their world for invasion. They knew my people planned to conquer them. And still they chose to help me heal. Still they chose to teach me. Still they chose to trust me. That is not weakness, Commander. That is courage beyond anything our empire has ever shown. The transmission ended abruptly. Some Quilnari ships retreated immediately, but others, perhaps inspired by Velthar's words, perhaps stunned by humanity's offer of peaceful negotiation even after the attack, chose to defect. They landed under white flags asking for asylum. 5 years passed. Velthar stood in the village square, now transformed into an interstellar cultural center. Young humans learned alongside young aliens. Former enemies became friends. The cafe was full of mixed species enjoying Young Mi's fusion cuisine. Taeyang's school had expanded into a full university. Velthar had become an ambassador, traveling occasionally to other worlds to tell his story. But he always returned to the village, to his family. Daejung's hair had gone completely white, but he still worked his fields. Hiram's garden now grew plants from 6 different worlds. Bora had opened a xenobiology clinic. Grandmother Kyungja had passed peacefully, but not before telling Velthar how proud she was of him. In his hand, Velthar held a small stone from the field where he had crashed. He carried it everywhere as a reminder of the moment his life truly began. The moment he learned that being saved by kindness was not the end of his story, but the beginning. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had done something far more powerful. They had shown the galaxy what civilization truly meant, and Velthar, once a soldier of a cold empire, had become living proof that anyone, even someone trained from birth to be cruel, could learn to be kind.